Well, I'll tell you how it started. Wayne, you would have known Wayne Ulrich. He came to Port Macquarie and we got to know him, and he helped me with the creation, and his kids came to creation and they knew nothing and they picked it up very quickly. And then one day I was just in the kitchen and Wayne's wife said, "Oh, Margaret, Wayne, Uncle was interested in creation. He has some books, would you be interested?" And I said, "Oh yes, I'll get them next month when we have our next creation." They brought them round that afternoon. And I thought, oh, he's keen. And he said his uncle was Jonathan Gray, and I had heard that name and I thought, oh, yes. And he had these books, and this was one of them, Dead Men's Secrets. And he told me a little bit about the history of the world. And I had to close my eyes, pretty open-minded, but I thought, no, that's ridiculous. That's just gone too far, what he said, what's happened. And so I wouldn't read the book. Now, how childish. But I go cook if other people are like that, but I didn't want to. I read some of the other books and studied it, and I was very into creation. But the beginning of this year, when I said, God, what am I going to do? Suddenly the picture of this book came in my mind, and I thought, oh no, I haven't even read it. So I looked and I couldn't find it anywhere, and I rang Wayne and he brought me round a copy. I got it on Kindle first, and I couldn't put it down. And the first time I read it, it was all gobbledygook. I couldn't understand it. At my age, it doesn't go in a lot, so I have to go over and over it, so I went over and I thought, oh, that's way out. And lucky I had my son and my husband in the house, and I'd tell them things, and they would give a typical answer of anyone. Mum, you cannot say that. People will think you lost the plot, you've lost it. They will switch off. You can't do it. And I said, but it's true, you can't do it, that's ridiculous. So I'd go searching, Mr. Google, please find this to me, and I'd find answers. So then started the research. It was constant research, and my husband has said, don't you get a headache sitting there day after day, night after night on your computer studying? And I said, it's exciting. I'm searching, and every time I pray for it, I find these things, they just pop up. And I was amazed what I was finding, the things on this chart. You know, I was coming along, and I'd say to him, how come we don't know this? How come we've never been told this? And I'd get quite angry. And then the things he said were ridiculous, and my son, in the end, I'd say, now they're 100% behind me. And my husband gets so disgusted with this world, the corruption and the lies. And this week, I thought, I've just got to get something else. And up popped on the computer 10 impossible things, findings that have been killed, just 10. And they all fitted in exactly what the antediluvians could do. I've only watched it twice. I need to watch it at least 6 times before it's gone in. But it was about quantum physics. I've never done science, but I could understand. And the main thing we need to know, when God created, he created us a little lower than the angels. And I've gone through, I found Ellen White, and our church, I don't think the people realise how blessed we are, how we know the knowledge we have. I have been in many churches, and I spent 10 years in a Pentecostal church, never missed a week. But we never learnt any of this, nothing. What I learnt I could have put on the palm of my hand. And ever since I've been in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, it's 40 years now, I have just studied and studied, and I can't get enough. And I was never like that, never. I was never a student of study. And so what really got me, it's not up there.
No, we can't get it up there because you're playing videos today with volume.
Right?
So we can't get it up the back yet, I'm sorry.
Well, I've started it. Will it come up at all?
Yes, like it will come up on the front and we'll all see it on the front, but unfortunately it just won't be on the back screen.
Brian, could you help me here? I've got... Oh, Andrew. I've started it. I don't know how you do it.
So this is...
Yes. So I started with Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, 9 to 11. Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun, nothing. Everything was there before. So there's anything we have done, they did. And that's hard to get through. There it is, if we can make it. I print everything and sometimes it doesn't fit in. Charlie says, do it on the computer. I'm much more comfortable hand doing everything. Can we get the full page?
How do you play that?
Up the top it says slideshow.
All right. And there's no new thing under the sun. Is there anything where it may be said, see, this is new, it has been of old times? So nothing, absolutely nothing they had, which was before us. But there's no remembrance of former things, neither shall there be any remembrance of things that are to come, that's those who shall come after. And that's what I've found by watching these videos. You see them, they're discovering. It's now the technology we can use. When I went to ancient Egypt, it was back on the 80s, we went in and I was blown away with the technology. And we went to Saqqara and you saw the great big blocks and you saw the bulls, and the lady said, no machine on earth, no one can do what they did then. No one. And I thought, oh, wow. But then to find out that they weren't the cleverest. They're up here on the chart. Now that's what blew me away. This is where people think I've lost the plot. There was a whole lot before that. And they're saying, these people that fight, and now, instead of having a shovel to dig and looking for pyramids, they just get the LiDAR, all this technology, and they look under the sand. This technology, they can see Noah's Ark that are found, they can see all the rooms and the corridors, and they can measure it all. And so people don't have a leg to stand on, and every day they are finding new stuff. Have you heard of Göbekli Tepe? It is one of the most exciting finds in the world, and it has been found near where Noah's Ark is, in Jerusalem. Sorry, all these pronunciations, my tongue can't get around it. The one that was found in the 1950s where they flew over it and they saw the outline, and then Ron Wyatt found it. That one is now the main candidate with all the technology. It's all been proved, and Göbekli Tepe has been found, and it's the oldest temple in the world. The oldest temple, and they recently sent Smithsonian Institute people to dig around there, and they've found all this pottery, the oldest pottery they've ever found, and it will disappear to one of the boxes. Under the Smithsonian Institute, it has 60 million boxes of exhibits that are too shocking to show the public because they kill evolution. And I have become so wild when I've been doing this study. Why are they getting away with it? Why? It's gone again. I've never done one. Andrew, I need your help. To find it, it's gone again. On my computer, I can't find.
What are you after?
I can't see it on here. It's gone off there, so I don't know where I'm. Oh, as I touch it.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, I
Oh,
don't
right.
know which way we're going there. That way?
right. Yes, I'll just go back. Right. So we were made perfect in the Garden of Eden, a little lower than the angels. And Ellen White said, our faculties were developed from the beginning. We now have 100 new mutations every generation. Our brain, we used about 1/10 of our brain, and they were at least double our size. Their brain capacity was so much higher. They lived for so long. We start to wear out in our brain. When we get to 22, we're fully developed, and the doctor said it's a downhill road. So I know my brother was a famous scientist, but he worked for less than 30 years. Imagine if he worked for 900, what he could have done. And then much stronger. I love this bit, the middle. Could illustrious scholars of our time be placed in contrast with men of the same age who lived before the flood? They would appear as greatly inferior physical and mental stress. In one of the quotes she said, I've forgotten the word now, feeble. We are so feeble compared to the men before the flood. So we've got to remember that. So the first resurrection, they're going to come out totally tall. We will come out as we are, but we are very, very feeble. So this shows you the ages. On those books it'll be there. See, there was so much how it come down here. And Ellen White, I always hear people say it's because of the meat. But Ellen White says it's because of sin, the corruption and sin, that man has deteriorated. And I don't know whether they're that big, that sounds a bit outrageous, but they were giants in the time, but we are nothing. We are nothing compared to them. And as it says, it would need more oxygen, so they obviously had more oxygen. And I have read her books when I was doing creation. I nearly read the print off the page, Prophets and Destiny, how it was like before the flood. Beautiful, before sin came in. Absolutely beautiful. And these are creatures today, and that's what they're like now. And we here in Australia, they've found giant kangaroos and giant, creatures. And in Death Valley, they've found these creatures that were as big as a Volkswagen and the beetle size. And they lived in swamps, and that's in Death Valley now, but that was during the Ice Age. So that's the size, a lot more oxygen. It was totally different. And when I see all this, I think of what it's going to be like in heaven. Look at the insects in comparison. So no wonder man had to be tall. We couldn't be the size we are because the animals had run us over. Now this is interesting. After the flood, the most pressing task was to get out there and do a survey. Before the flood, there was only one big landmass, and they spread out quickly. People today, women today, their gestation period where they can have children is about 30 years. It was 400 back then. So you had 400 years at least to have your children. And Adam and Eve in Jewish records, they say they believe they had about 35 children. And so when you've got 400 years, that's no problem. And so you imagine after the flood, they soon built up, they spread out. And the first thing they had to do was survey. And if you think they had 20 years to build that ark, they knew they were getting wiped off, they had to start again. What was the main thing they would have been doing? I believe they would have been getting as much evidence as they can of what life was like before the flood, because they knew they had to start again. Before the flood, there were so many minerals and things that were so plentiful. God gave them the most magnificent home, and they only lasted 1,500 before he was sorry he had even made them. So they spread out, and their population, they have worked out it'd be about 1 billion, almost 1 billion. So they've spread out, and so they had huge knowledge and cartology. They would have, well, they wouldn't have, there was only one landmass. They could do anything. And now that this article I got the other day with 10 impossible tasks, you could see space travel was nothing, and the things they had were just nothing. And so they believe there was 3 lots of surveys, and the first one would have been Mizraim. His name meant to delineate, draw up a plan. Peleg later, in the days the earth was surveyed, and Almadad, inventor of geometry. So they would have done the first surveys, and the maps they made, if you look at the old maps, are unbelievable. And they mapped Antarctic and the Arctic without ice. The big problem is people don't think there was after the flood, the ice age came straight away. And there's not a lot of knowledge amongst Christians about the Ice Age. I really researched it when I was doing creation with the kids, and I wouldn't teach them something I wasn't sure of, and I really studied it. And the first time I did it in Port, 2 lovely old gentlemen in the church at the luncheon cornered me, and it was the first time I'd ever been verbally abused. And boy, did I cop it for teaching heresy. How dare you? We've told the brethren, we're telling the brethren all about you. How dare you teach heresy? And I'd spent 30 years in a government school teaching the Bible and doing nativities, and I'd never been into trouble. I'd taught in some pretty wild schools, and here I was at a church. I'd studied the Ice Age, and I had strips torn off me. And I was so distressed. I went to pastor and I said, I'm too old for this. I'm not going to teach anything that I don't believe is correct. Can you give me the highest authority in the world, in the Adventist Church, in creation? And if they allow me to teach it, I'll go ahead. But otherwise, I won't teach anything that's heresy. I was so distressed. Anyway, he put me onto the GC and the top guy there, and I wrote to 2 of them in case one had a different perspective. First one just wrote a nice letter back, and Tim Standish wrote, he was so funny, he said, I understand totally how you feel. I want to meet you when I come to Australia, and we'll sort this out. But he said, unfortunately, the church don't know about the Ice Age. So he came, he brought me a whole lot of gifts. He came to Port Macquarie and did a program. And Justin got me to send everything I had on the Ice Age down to the conference. And he sat as many ministers as he could get hold of to sit down and watch these videos and learn about the Ice Age and not abuse people, because they didn't know anything about it and the Ice Age, because they associated millions of years that I was teaching evolution, and I wasn't. And so the Ice Age is a most fascinating topic. I might do it next year because I've already prepared that. I've done it before, so, and the kids love it. But that's when the waters went down about 400 metres all around the world. So they'd already surveyed, they went around, they would have had all that equipment, and the people before the flood and straight after, their computers were much stronger and powerful than ours. That was their brain. They didn't need to write books or write anything down. It was all in their brain. Our brains are so small, we cannot comprehend what it is like that. It's taken me about 8 months to even get my head around it. And that's why I've got a booklet that you can start. Please do not shut off and think I've gone crazy. This did happen. Remember, Solomon said it will all be forgotten. Our brains cannot work it out. So they surveyed and they started building, and they built some of the most magnificent cities in the Antarctic and the Arctic. And the Antarctic had glass castles, rainbow glass castles. You have no idea. From halfway through this book, Jonathan does the discoveries, what they have found. And most people would just say rubbish. I have never read a better book. Dead Men's Secrets. And he went around the world studying. He did not believe any of this stuff when he first heard it. He thought it was absolute rubbish and Ron Wyatt, so he gathered all the information to go and show Ron Wyatt where he was wrong. And when he went to see him, he spent weeks with him, and he actually got off his butt and he went to see the discoveries, and he realised they were correct, and he started studying it. And so he was pushed out of the church. He was a pastor. He was pushed out. And so he loved archaeology, and his wife, the story of her, Josephine, I have never in my life heard a testimony like it. Never. How God led. And what I'm finding is that when I first came into the church over 40 years ago, people believed in miracles. We used to have missionaries go to the islands, and God had such amazing stories, how the petrol would run out, the boats would keep going, all sorts of missionary stories. I haven't heard a proper miracle story for years. I've had many miracles, so I don't doubt these things. The first one was, or one of the best was when I prayed for the $1 million after my son had died, that I wanted to start a rehab, and someone, heart would be touched to someone out there and give me $1 million, about 5 million these days, as if. But I believed it. I really believed it, and I told people, and I was mocked on the radio. It was really hard, and they were going to get rid of me in the committee because I was very naive. I didn't know about corruption and lies and powers and ego and control. I just lived in an innocent world, and my husband used to say, don't go out there in the world, stay in your innocent little world where Christians never lie, Christians do everything nice, Christians are sweet. He said, you will be eaten alive. He said, don't do it. I did. 3 hours before the deadline, stranger rang up, said, how much do you need? I said, about $1 million. I'll give you $1 million. What? Why? My heart was touched with David's story. That's only one of about 10 miracles. So when I heard about miracles, I have no doubt. God believes in miracles. So they went out, they mapped all this, and these people were doing amazing things. And the in that book is about the Piri-Reis map of 1530, and it used old maps. They started mapping soon after the flood. They had the ability, they could do anything. And what I'm finding in these videos, they're saying, we've come to the conclusion that there was a very advanced race before us, and we have amnesia and we've forgotten it. And I'm thinking, yes, yes. So they have to work out where they come from. So the only place they can think of is aliens. Because there was a younger Dryas, that's a word they've come up with for the Ice Age and this period. And then we came from monkeys, and then we slowly go up and we go millions of years. And I'm thinking, where are the churches? Where are they? The world's 6,000 years old, they were brilliant. Why isn't someone standing up? It has been the most frustrating thing. But when Jonathan Gray stood up and went around preaching, he wasn't allowed to go to Adventist church, they organised to have him killed. And the only reason he survived is he called out to God, save him. If he had fallen down, they were attacking him in New Guinea with big boards, hitting him on the back. If he had fallen, he would have died. And suddenly the attacker dropped the bag because he was brilliant at, he wrote down every single thing. He started to run. This man dropped the bag and ran, and they got Jonathan on a plane back to Darwin. And the doctors in the Darwin hospital said, an angel must have protected you. You shouldn't be alive. So why would people stand up? Why would they? And the more I look at this, I think, why aren't we standing up? And high in the mountains of Ghana, locals told of the ancestors, the people came after the great waters in canoes, and the rocks were so soft that they'd trace marks. Because after the flood, the water hadn't gone down totally everywhere. It took a while if there were mountains around. And then there was a whole lot, during the Ice Age and that, you saw the power of water, the Great Missoula Flood. The man that discovered that, Betts, he was a geologist, and he worked in Washington, New York, and he went up and he got to Missoula area, and he was stunned at all of this landscape. There was boulders as high as that big round ones. There were cliffs carved. It was just total destruction. And he could not believe mountains coming along, or hills, and then just dropping. And all this landform he'd never seen before. And he thought, that has to be catastrophe, because they believed in slow and gradual uniformitarian. So he was so excited, he contacted the headquarters. They believed him? No. So you know what they did first? Discredited his name. That's what you do first. He's a pseudo-geologist. No, he's gone crazy. He's mad. He's lost the plot. They sacked him. They wouldn't go and have a look. Of course, you don't go and have a look at these things because you might see it's right. He lost his job. He detailed it, the Great Missoula Flood. 40 years later, some geologists were going up there, and they said, let's go and see where this crazy old Betts reckons there was this flood. They got up there and they said there was catastrophe. They saw it. Now, if you search it out, the Great Missoula Flood, there was an ice wall, a big glacier flood, and it showed the power of water, but it's nothing what happened during the flood. And one of the guys that makes the best kids' resources, he used this gentleman, I don't know, I can't always remember the name of these sciences, but he showed how he thought it could have happened during the flood. And the other creation ministries didn't like it, so they've banned his books. So it was so hard for me to buy them. And they slammed his character. That's what you do first, you slam their character. It's happening all over the world. So how would rocks be soft? They discovered this certain plant, if you get it, you get the juice and rub it on rocks and it's soft like putty. And you can do anything with it and then it sets hard. I haven't lost the plot. And see, see the Ice Age? The first migration wave, and then supercultures, much more advanced than ancient Egypt, much more advanced. They're the ones who could move the big rocks. How'd they move them? 1,000 tons, cut it perfectly. You might have got it from a long way away, across trees, across rivers, cut it perfectly to 1/100 of an inch, cut it out, have little knobs on it, have little loop things, looked like it's carved out when it was soft, and put them all. How'd they build the big pyramids? The ancient Egyptians didn't build those. They had pulleys, and they didn't build them. Who built them? Straight after the flood, all around the world. Acoustic levitation. I've discovered there's all sorts of levitation. There's water levitation, there's acoustic levitation. There's all sorts. They could do anything. They could move 1,000 tons and they'd get there. I'll show the pictures, and they go up to the wall. We think we're clever. We're nothing. There's the Pierce maps. They're those of Antarctic and Arctic. That's during the Ice Age. You see, during the Ice Age, the oceans were like a warm bath because of all the volcanoes and all the amalgam, whatever it is, magma that came up from the ocean. So they were like a warm bath, and they set off all this evaporation. And the waters went down. They were evaporating everywhere. And the ice only started in the middle of the continents, not around the equator. And the ice was forming, and it got to about 700 metres high. But in these, the rest of the places, it was like a lush garden. It was beautiful. 6 generations they built cities, complex musical instruments. So Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel, and Cain built the first city. It wasn't a hovel, it was a city. They were clever. Now, how do I do this? This just shows you the first civilizations. They're not the ancient
The exploration of advanced technology.
That's not loud enough, is it?
Invites us to reconsider the narrative of human progress and the linear model of technological evolution. It raises profound questions about the transmission of knowledge, the potential for lost technologies, and the remarkable ingenuity of ancient civilizations. In this documentary, we will examine some of the most compelling cases of advanced ancient technology found in Egypt, delving into the evidence of sophisticated engineering, acoustics, and possibly even electricity. The Osirian. The Osirian, a monumental ancient structure in Abydos, approximately 350 miles south of the Great Pyramid of Giza, remains a subject of profound mystery and debate. Its architectural sophistication and unique characteristics have led some to speculate that it might be the product of a much older, advanced ancient civilization possessing technology far beyond what is traditionally attributed to the Egyptians of the Pharaonic era. One of the first puzzles the Osirian poses is its architectural design, which deviates significantly from the typical temple structure found in ancient Egypt. Unlike the linear, rectangular layout common to most Egyptian temples, the Osirian features a complex, L-shaped configuration. This anomaly raises questions about the intentions behind its design and construction. Further complicating matters is the Osirians' relationship with the Temple of Seti I, as it appears to predate the latter, suggesting it was a significant site long before Seti I decided to build his temple adjacent to it. The sheer scale of the Osirian is breathtaking. Massive rose granite blocks, some weighing 100 tons, form the core of this structure. These colossal stones were quarried from Aswan, located a staggering 200 miles away. The logistical challenges involved in moving these massive blocks across such distances, only to be placed in a desert location several miles from the Nile, are monumental. The transportation and placement of these enormous blocks defy the capabilities attributed to ancient Egyptians. The question then arises, how were these gigantic stones moved and precisely placed without any known evidence of advanced machinery? The architecture of the Osirian further fuels this enigma. The site, featuring a complex, double-layered roofing system and about a dozen chambers, showcases a level of architectural sophistication that seems out of reach for a civilization equipped with primitive tools. Such complexity, particularly the interlocking wedges and precision in stacking the massive blocks, suggests a level of engineering knowledge not typically associated with ancient Egypt. The use of granite, a material far more challenging to work with than the more commonly used limestone, indicates a technological prowess that the ancient Egyptians, as far as historical records show, did not possess. Another mystery of the site is that it lacks any Egyptian hieroglyphs, arts, or artifacts. Absolutely nothing can link this site to the ancient Egyptians. All throughout the history of Egypt, temples and monuments built by the Egyptians were regularly renovated, and with each renovation, additional artworks and hieroglyphs were added. Yet in the Osirian, we don't see anything like that. Furthermore, the Osirian's subterranean layout is highly unusual for Egyptian temple architecture. It is situated 15 feet below the ground level, a feature that is both unique and puzzling. Some researchers propose that this could be due to the temple being much older than the surrounding structures, possibly predating the sands and soil that have accumulated over millennia. There are also water erosion patterns found on the limestone enclosure around the site, which some researchers argue could only have occurred if the structure was built before the end of the last ice age, a time when the climate in the region was much wetter. Perhaps.
Yeah, we'll stop there. See, the climate was a lot wetter. That was during the Ice Age. There were no deserts. So they would have been built, and the Sphinx was built then, and they have all these underground cities. Now you think, come on. Yes. So this blew me away. That disc there. I will just quickly. Now this one too. We'll just watch this one.
Penetrated the sealed chambers of Pharaoh Tutankhamun's tomb. Untouched for millennia, the tomb was a treasure trove, brimming with golden artifacts and decorations. This discovery, one of the most significant archaeological finds to date, opened a window into the opulence and mystery of ancient Egypt. In another video of ours, we discussed in detail the strange deaths that followed everyone connected to this discovery, starting with Lord Carnarvon, who died 4 months after the discovery. In the following years, 7 members of the expedition died mysteriously, leading many to believe they were cursed. But let's get back to the artifacts found in the tomb. Among the myriad of treasures, the most intriguing was Tutankhamun's collection of daggers, particularly an iron dagger with a gold sheath and handle, discovered alongside the young pharaoh's mummified remains. This dagger, with its exquisite craftsmanship and unusual material, sparked intense interest and debate among historians and archaeologists. The golden sheath and handle were typical of the grandeur associated with Egyptian royalty, but it was the iron blade that was truly extraordinary. In an era dominated by bronze, the presence of iron, a material more precious than gold at the time, was an anomaly. The Egyptians, renowned for their work with copper, bronze, and gold, were not known for iron smelting, which became prevalent only in the first millennium BC, centuries after Tutankhamun's reign. The dagger's quality further deepened the mystery. It was later discovered that the dagger is actually made from a meteorite iron, which makes it even more extraordinary. How was such a sophisticated artifact produced? The Egyptians themselves attributed the dagger's origin to divine intervention, calling it a gift from the gods. This notion fuels speculation about the dagger being a product of a more advanced civilization, or perhaps an extraterrestrial gift. Mainstream Egyptologists confronted with this enigma proposed that the Egyptians simply extracted the iron from a meteorite that had fallen somewhere in Egypt. This theory, while plausible, has its shortcomings. Extracting metal from a meteoroid, especially in the Bronze Age, was beyond Egyptian capabilities. Moreover, meteoritic iron is scattered throughout the meteoroid, making extraction without advanced technology impossible. In 1994, X-ray fluorescence spectrometry analysis revealed that the dagger's blade was not ordinary meteoritic iron. The alloy was complex and durable, comprising 89% iron with significant amounts of nickel, cobalt, and chromium, a composition requiring advanced metallurgical skills, unavailable until much later in human history. The dagger's craftsmanship was equally baffling. It lacked any hammer marks, common in metalwork of the period, and its edges were exceptionally precise. This level of sophistication in metallurgy and craftsmanship seemed out of place in the context of Bronze Age Egypt. Intriguingly, Tutankhamun's tomb also housed other mysterious artifacts, like a breastplate adorned with a winged scarab made from an unusual yellow.
That's just to take, I'll skip this one.
At the base of another stone.
And this is something the antediluvians realised about electricity. They were, if they were going to make have all this industry, they needed power. And so they worked out how to get free electricity from the earth. Chris Bowen needs to be shown this. I'll go. And why did they have all these? Why are those all over? There was a scientist visiting a place in England, and he happened to just stand on the hill just overlooking the beautiful village, and he suddenly spotted everything was in line. Everything, he noticed all the all the spires were in line, and there was lines everywhere. He'd never noticed that. Then he told the other scientists, and they had a look all over England, and everything was in lines. And they had a look in Europe, everything was in lines, and they suddenly started to study, And this is what the ancients did. They couldn't build big cities and that until they had power. They needed power. So before the flood, they had free electricity. There were stories of lights that never went out. They'd go in, and the caves they've done in India, there's no way they could have got electricity in there. They're the most advanced. No one can do them, cut them out and shine and polish them. But there's no signs of smoke, damage or anything from lights. They had to have lights, and there's all these stories in the past, lights that never went out. 5,000 years they'd be lit, lights everywhere. So they had tapped in how to get electricity and power before for nothing. And they got it from the earth, the magnetism. And this new stuff I found out, there's also power in the atmosphere. There's all these quantum physics, and it's beyond my brain. Some young bright person. But that's what they've discovered. So they knew about this, and the ones across the top, I forget what they were important, but this is all lining up. And this is where the power comes to, and they had to get them all lined up, and the pyramids were the main thing. They had to get, because I remember my brother, not the scientist one, the teacher one, he was into pyramid power when he was at uni, and everyone was building pyramids and they were power. Then they've discovered there's incredible power in pyramids, but they needed water underneath. Tunnels. You have no idea what went on there. And so these are all over the country. There's Göbekli Tepe, that's the one up near where Noah's Ark is, the oldest temple in the world. But the strange thing, there's Kara Tepe, there's 3 of them, but they don't know what happened. They weren't destroyed. They were all covered up, knocked over and covered up. So something happened, but they've found it, forgotten super civilization. So this is not long after the flood, where Noah's Ark is today. And that's where the oldest artefacts were found and probably disappeared into Smithsonian. Pastor David Price sent me the link on that one. Look at the boulders they used to move. There's no machinery now can do it. With acoustic levitation, with the music and the chants, they'd go anywhere. Pyramids. Doesn't matter what shape they are. Are there many pyramids? Yep. 43 in Sicily. This is the Bosnian one. The poor guy that discovered this not long ago. It's been in plain sight for years, but see, the jungle takes it over, and it's bigger than the biggest one in Egypt. And if you have a look, you think, hang on, that looks like a pyramid. And the fella that found it, well, they came out of the woodwork, all the archaeologists, especially the Egyptian one. A fella, no, it's not a pyramid, it's a natural shape. Wouldn't let him dig. So he had backbone, and he got advertised. All these archaeologists, young ones across the world, backed him and went there, and he's got young people coming from all around the world helping dig. What they are finding underneath is amazing. And when they go under there, people with back problems, all sorts of issues, are suddenly getting healed. So they keep going back there for their holidays. And even one of the head guys, he has been drinking the water under there and feeling incredible. It's a greeny colour. It's under the Sphinx, it's under there, it's under everywhere. Remember, we have a pea brain compared to their brain, and they lived a lot longer. What about Bosnian one? See, that's not a pyramid. Did he get up close? What about the Sahara? What about East Africa? What about Spain? What about 224 in Sudan, Cambodia, United States, Canary Island, under the Sahara, El Salvador? Here's a circle. There's either circles, mounds, pyramids, all of these. They attract electricity. And then you have the straight lines. The Romans had one of the straight lines. And then which do you think was the headquarters? A great big tower that went up to heaven. Nimrod, Tower of Babel, link it all, one world government. These they finally discovered. And when the sun hit certain spots, you know, the sun at certain times of the year, they worked out if you got cars or very machines there, when the sun came in, they got powered and they could fly to England. But there was only one thing that stopped it, an eclipse. And that's why they've discovered why they were so fanatical on mapping the sky and finding out the eclipse. It was just like a blackout. If you're up in the sky flying, a blackout comes down, you come. They were clever. The more you dig, you just think, I can't find anything more incredible. And then I think, what's heaven going to be like? Wow. What about one in Antarctica? I'll come off it. Before the Ice Age. It had the Crystal City. It was one of the big... They had everything, when God made this earth, everything is in order. His pattern, the golden ratio. Everything, even our face is in the ratio, our body, everything in nature, everything. And Noah's Ark, now that they've had this technology, look, all the measurements are perfect, they all fit the golden ratio. Everything in nature. God has given us this most incredible world. You can forget about all the rubbish that's happened in the world and watch this and get so excited. I have had so many sleepless nights, just so excited about what I've learnt. It's just been the most incredible journey. Look at it. But everything. Fibonacci numbers, the Mandelbrot. I showed the Mandelbrot to the kids at Heritage, and they were mesmerised. The patterns and in geometry, it keeps going and going and going. The guy that founded it blew up his computer, so he had to get the numbers by hand. And the Fibonacci, I determined, in Jonathan Gray's book on that, Barossa, the Chaldean priest, had made this riddle where the ark was after it landed on Mount Sinai, in the mountains, Mount Sinai, and then Ararat, I mean, and then slipped down. He knew, he used to take tours to it, and then he had this riddle. Jonathan Gray cracked the riddle and found it. It was exactly in the spot, and they were all about meridians, the latitude and longitude. Everything is so precise. It just blows you away, and they're exactly... So Cyrus, when he found all this out, when the Great Pyramid, he moved the temples where they put all the bodies, he moved it across. See? Everything was connected. This is a Bosnian proof. Everything. It's just mind-boggling. See, they had water underneath it. There was always water under pyramids. That's part of the electricity. And that, it's been written and passed at university, it is correct. It's a giant electric power station. It's common knowledge, and I think, how come I didn't know that? If you haven't known it, how come? And see, it was coated with limestone, gold at the top or diamonds at the top. They were incredible to get more electricity, but they had to have water underneath. And inside that room, they've only recently found it, was coated with organic and inorganic material. And they found, the Egyptian archaeologists removed the knobs. They went in and they found things like you have in a power room now, the points, the copper points, and where it was all plugged in. There's no body. They weren't built for pharaohs. They were buried in the kings. Those ones, I can't remember what it was. We went to visit where Tutankhamun was. They weren't in the pyramids. This is it. These are the, I'll just look at one of them. Oh, the Rife cancer one. They have invented this microscope that is the most powerful in the world. It could see all the little, whatever they are, tiny little things. It could kill cancer. They had 100 patients in the trial, 100%. He disappeared. Because there's an industry curing cancer. Not curing, working with cancer. You can't cure 100%. This one here, the Coral Castle, I've watched that one about 3 times. That is fascinating. An old fellow had been to the Tibetan monks, that's where they know about it, right up in Tibet, and learnt about acoustic levitation. He was retired, old and crippled. He couldn't probably lift up something a teenager can lift up, and he made a temple out of coral rock, only at night. No one's allowed to see it if you look it up. And he had these big blocks, properly carved. He had a hidden office when he died. They went in and destroyed everything. And he made this castle himself. How'd all the people said they saw in the moonlight rocks flying. They did it with the levitation. And when he had died, the doorway, one of the blocks had fallen down. It took all this big machinery to lift one block. He did the whole thing. It's fascinating, these. The implosion, that's another one with energy. Implosion. Philadelphia one is how they became invisible and moved. The anti-gravity, see that one up there? Well, you look, they won't show you now in Egyptian hieroglyphs. They have quite a few of those, and they used to fly everywhere. They worked out the principle of anti-gravitation. So that's why they could fly to Mars and had a settlement on Mars. I'll quickly go through there. That is unbelievable. It's hard to find. When you look it up, you've got to keep looking because it's only brand new. See, there were supercultures, energy springs. This is bubble. See, that's the part, the middle there and the top would be covered in ice, except this one down here. That's where it was nice and lush during the Ice Age and after it. That's where they had the supercultures. And they all sprung up at the same time. See, that's where the ice was at the end. Fully mature. See the blocks? How'd they get those up there? Lifted up. The ones in Russia will blow you away, and the underground cities. The caves. Look at them. They're all over the world. All put together. Huge. Carved with such precision. Look at them. And earthquakes won't wreck them. Look, they're the ones. See? You get stuff on them, make the rock soft. They're not silly. Look, your handprints. Solid rock. Look at these blocks. How'd they move those? Look at them, 1,500 tonnes. The Romans, when they came along, and the Greeks, they built their temples on top of these. And they only had smaller blocks and they cut them into pieces. These are one piece, this is one that are left behind. They got them up sheer cliffs. We think we're clever. See? This is how they did placement of the musical instruments. I watched a demonstration of it. It's fascinating. See, they got around in Tibet and they played the drums and that. Ooh, they just go moving everywhere. See, you won't see that. They got rid of that one. In Egypt, all the machines, they had submarines flying. That's why people think they came from space, because they made the machines against gravity. That's an old hieroglyphics. Helicopters, fast cars. This is one of the Greek ones. They had incredible. They had to be able to, after the Tower of Babel and they were spread out, then suddenly they couldn't talk to each other. They had to go and see each other. And then this is the one. This is some of the incredible stuff. That's only a 40th of an inch. This is from the first ones, not the ancient Egyptians, the first lot. And see, the Ica stones, and there's the dinosaurs carved. They had big stones, and then they'd put them in the graves. Perfect pictures of dinosaurs, and they only discovered that in 1982. What a Triceratops looks like. They knew. Then the Ica stones are Nazca lines. Look at this spider. It's microscopic. It comes from the Amazon, this tiny little cave. And when it copulates, it puts its leg out. How did they know that you needed a high-powered microscope? And that's on the ground. They built them on the ground, and they only found them in 19-something when they flew over them. Underground, I'll quick. That's in Russia. The cities they had, I'll just quickly, I've gone over time. I will have to skip that one. Rewrite history. Look at the underground cities, they're all over the world. Perfectly carved out. The lighting, look at them. They're like ants' nests. I wouldn't believe this one, that was too far. When you find them, wow. They're under the Sphinx, they're everywhere. And in Australia, there's pyramids quite a few places. No, said the archaeologist, no. See, Ecuador, that used to be a city there. That used to be a city. See, straighten your crooked, it's pagan. We learnt all about that with, not Walter Wise, can't think of the guy. We got into trouble for learning all that. See, why don't we know each? Every city that came along destroyed the information. They all destroyed it. There was 3,000 beautiful scrolls with information, and they got them in the baths, to heat the baths in Rome for 6 months for fuel. Everything was destroyed. Have you heard of Timbuktu? I thought that was out the back of Burke. Last week I found it. It was one of the greatest cities. Had the most gold, the wealthiest city in the world in the middle of the desert in Africa. I thought Timbuktu, we'd say, I'll go to Timbuktu. That had the largest library in the world, and they came in and destroyed it. That is a fascinating And I'll quickly get to this. This is where you might switch off. They had atomic warfare, because where did they lose that information? Atomic warfare. Remember, there's nothing new under the sun. It all shall be forgotten. If they could build underground cities and do all that, they could blow each other up. Now, this is just a couple of written things about how do they know this. Hair and nails. Does that sound like Hiroshima? This is written way back in Pakistan. Came from the Sanskrit text, 2,500 BC. They blew each other up. Jealousy, corruption. That's why all that information was lost. This is some of the places that had it. There it is, Tritonite. No, that's just glass. There's some of the places that had atomic warfare. Bricks all fused together. If you start searching this, you'll be kept busy till Jesus comes. Look at that. Green glass. These are the high civilisations. 3 of them disappeared with the Ice Age. Antarctica, how could it have a high, really incredible city? Greenland and the Caribbean. Well, the Caribbean drowned when the water came up. And notice, next to those others, the agriculture centres started all at the same time. Here's a natural formation under the sea at Bimini. That's what they said, that's just a natural formation. They're just natural formations of the city that they built, of course, because people build beside the sea. And when it went down 400 metres, they built, Atlantis would have been built by the waterside, and then they didn't know the sea was going to rise. They even had pyramids, Bimini. And so then there were cavemen, that's how they dressed. They didn't live in caves, they lived in houses, they did their paintings in the caves. Look, their artwork is as good as any artwork today, if not better. And they knew all about the stars, so they did them on, worked them with the stars. Do we do that? They could even do movie ones. And so, quickly, this is just, we have declined. We have got smaller. The second law of thermodynamics said everything goes down. We're getting shorter, we're not near as clever, we've got more disease, decline of technology, and then Rome, that's where Jesus came, and then we have the Dark Ages, then the Renaissance, and then they started again getting better. We're getting better, but we haven't caught up. Sorry I went over time. This is the most exciting study, and the message is we should get our archaeologists to tell these people the real human story. We were clever, and when heaven comes, we're made in the image of God, a little shorter than the angels, a little less than the angels, that we will someday go to heaven, and I can't wait. The exciting thing is there'll be no corruption, no lies, no deceit, no backstabbing, no abusing. Everyone will love each other, we'll get on, and I can't wait for that. It's gonna, if you start studying this, you'll find it's the most exciting thing and what God made for us. And we're letting people destroy it, especially in Australia. So if you let Brian or anyone know, I just want to know how many this book, it doesn't have about the atomic warfare. A lot of this stuff has only just been discovered. A lot of this, it's because of the technology. But this is great, and the kids one. So thank you for allowing me to come.
Thank you, Margaret. Father God, Lord, as we leave this place, leave this worship this morning, please grant us your mercy. Lord, you've stretched out time in a way that we can only imagine, and things get lost and forgotten through history, Lord, and you're bringing some knowledge back that we can be encouraged in these last days, Lord, that your coming is near, and Lord, we can't wait to understand the history that went before us and the future that we have with you, Lord. Please bless us as we leave here this morning, and grant us your peace and mercy as we go into the community this week and until we come back and worship you again next Sabbath, Lord. Please bless everybody here. These things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, Margaret.